All right. We are officially live.
Hey, everyone.
Give me 1 second. Looks like people are starting to shuffle into the room now. So, Nate, we were discussing earlier, you're calling in from San Diego.
I'm in San Diego right now, but originally from Massachusetts, but I live in Orlando in San Diego for the week. Where are you?
How's the weather over there?
Oh my God, it's great. You can't beat California weather.
I know. But luckily right now, I think it's like right now I'm in Jersey and it's 70 degrees.
Really? I thought it was cold up there.
It's insane. It's supposed to be cold, but we have a warm front for the next day or two.
Nice. A 24-hour warm front.
Yeah, it is nice. I'll be actually meeting you in San Diego this coming Sunday.
Yeah, I'm excited. It should be good.
Yes. For those that are listening, we're heading to the Traffic and Conversion Summit in San Diego this coming weekend. So if you're out there, please feel free to give us a holler.
We have some coupons too for half off. If you haven't bought your tickets, feel free to reach out to me. Jeremy, who's a mutual connection of ours, a client of mine. It might be a client of yours too. I'm not sure. Yeah, and so we have some discounts. There's a reception on Sunday. If you're a client of mine, let me know. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So while people are shuffling in, if anybody that's shuffling in wants to let us know where they're dialing in from, or perhaps maybe put their most pressing outsourced problem that they're trying to overcome. So it looks like we've got Ismail saying hi. What's up, Ismail? We've got Julie. Hey, Julie. Julie Rowley. Feel free to Julie. Nate, what were you saying?
I was just saying hi to everyone that was there. Welcome.
Nice. Okay. So while people are still coming in, let's give everyone a couple more minutes and we'll get started. We have a lot of information in this PowerPoint today. So there's a lot to cover, a lot to digest. And so we may go over a little bit. There will be a replay for those that probably can't stay the whole 1 hour slot. If you think anybody should be on this, if you're dialed in, please feel free to send people a link to dial in, to join us on this webinar. Like if there's someone in your organization or in your network that you think needs some delegation in their life and needs some outsourcing to outsource their weaknesses, send them a link.
And it's cool that we're doing this early in the year because January, February, March, I mean, that's really when you're figuring out what the plan is for the year. And a lot of that planning comes down to hiring and figuring out what tasks you're going to take off your plate, what weaknesses you currently have in your business. So, I mean, this is the perfect time for this webinar to get on the same page, figure out what the plan is so that you can have maximize the rest of the year.
So we've got Michael. He's saying that he's creating all the SOPs when there are profitable activities to do now.
Yep.
So I have a good little productivity hack for that we can share.
Same here.
In the presentation. Oh, we got Sam, my buddy Sam, coming in from Newport Beach.
What's going on, Sam?
Nikhil, a lot of familiar faces. Thanks for joining. All right, I think we're good. How about you?
Let's do it.
No time like the present. Look, for those that are on time or early is on time and on time is late. So let's do it. All right, so today we're going to talk about the mistakes to avoid when outsourcing. And then on my end, we'll talk about productivity machine. Both myself and Nate, we're going to get into our experience in a second, have a lot to share in this realm. And so we're going to dive in. So Nate, you please share your background with people that are dialing in.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nathan Hirsch. I've been selling on Amazon since I was 20. I really got into it back when Amazon was transitioning from just a bookstore to so much more. And I started drop shipping baby products. I started selling baby products on Amazon, drop shipping way back in the day, and I was really thrown into it. I didn't know what e-commerce was. There were no gurus out there. I didn't even know what busy season was, and so I was really thrown into the fire. And right now, I mean, I own a condo in Florida. You can see a picture of my lovely girlfriend and our puppy that we just adopted there. I run an Amazon business and freeup.com, which is a marketplace for freelancers, and both of them are entirely remote, 100% run by remote workers. The Amazon business has employees, whereas the FreeUp is just entirely outsourced. I have that financial freedom that every entrepreneur wants, and I achieve that through smart hiring. And I can't put into words how important hiring good people around you is to achieve that. And I've worked with 500 plus freelancers. By now, it might even be 1,000 plus. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to the good, the bad, and the ugly when you're dealing with freelancers. And even though I've had that success, it wasn't always that way. I mean, back in the day, I had a 50% turnover rate, and it was driving me crazy. Single person I hire, I walked out the door. And when I speak at conferences, I always talk about that one day where that third consecutive hire was walking out the door, and I grabbed him aside and I asked to do an exit interview to get that feedback. And it was honestly the most valuable thing. I should have written that guy a check right there, because he was brutally honest when it came to the mistakes I was making, the culture that I had been building, the reason for that turnover. And it took me from this really stressed out person who had made a lot of bad hiring decisions, lost all my hair because of it, to a new me that it went from 60, 70, 80, and finally 95% retention rate by changing up the way that I was doing it. And I mean, outsourcing has really changed my entire outlook on business. I used to be working 15 hours a day doing a lot of repetitive operations, and really opening up that world to not only hiring, but hiring effectively has put me in a really good place. So from that information I learned, I'm determined to help other people. It's one thing to help your own business. It's another thing to share it with the world. And I've been able to help thousands of business owners across the world, and freelancers as well. Last year, we paid out over $3 million to freelancers on the FreeUp platform. So really making a difference. Hiring is something that's important to me. People want to like where they work. They want to like their boss, their manager, and they want to have a business that they feel a part of. So that's really my message. And I'm excited. I love talking about this topic.
I'm excited to dig into the details.
For sure.
So guys, for those that are joining, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Skubana. It's an operational platform that'll automate your entire business. I also happen to be a top 500 Amazon seller, which is how we actually started Skubana, because I couldn't find a unified platform to make it all happen in one place that was out of the box, that was multi-channel, that replaced human labor. And then I also recently authored a book called Cheaper, Easier, Direct. Of course, it's on Amazon. You can check it out. It's pretty much my entire private label blueprint on how I've built my business today. So today, what the world looks like is I have a $10 million business with Crucial, with one employee in the United States. Everything else is outsourced labor. And then I'm also a top 500 seller. And so today, my goal is to drop as much value as we possibly can to make sure that you guys are maximizing your 1 hour here. And I'm going to reveal every tool and tech that I'm using right now to run my business, like my entire tech stack, along with some tips and tricks for myself and Nate to essentially move the needle in your business in a way you never thought before.
Love it. So I want everyone that's watching to close your eyes for a second and really think what's preventing you from making that next hire and taking your business to the next level. Is it a financial thing, which we'll talk a little bit more about? Is it a scared thing? Have you made bad hires in the past that have prevented you from doing it again? Are you just scared of the whole security aspect? Your business is your baby and you don't want anyone else touching it. Or are you just worried that you're not going to do it correctly? Because like anything else in business, there's the right way and the wrong way. And if you don't know what the right way is, a lot of time it can be intimidating. So we're going to try to address that. We're going to try to make you more comfortable than ever before, because at the end of the day, there's only one way to grow your business, and that's by hiring. At some point, even if you do everything yourself and you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, you're going to hit that ceiling. And if you don't know how to hire and hire effectively, there's only so much that you can do to grow your business. So I'm excited to dive into it.
Cool. And just a personal share, my first time outsourcing, I made a massive mistake. My wife had went to India, and I spent that entire time training a VA to work with me, and that VA lasted a whole 2 days. And I was like, oh my God, this is never going to work. And if you look at what's happened now, like I'm completely remotely distributed as well. And we'll get into that. We'll get into how I've made it happen too.
God, I have so many stories like that.
We all make mistakes, guys.
Yep.
It's how quickly you can pick up that ball from the fumble and run with it.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to talk about a framework of how to run your business. We're going to go through some mistakes because Nate sees a lot more entrepreneurs outsourcing than I do on a daily basis. So he's going to go through the mistakes to avoid when you're outsourcing. And then we're going to take a look at the software I use to augment and replace human labor in my business. And we're going to spitball. It's going to be interactive. If people want to ask a question in the chat, please feel free. Again, this is your time, and we're just here to drop as much information as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
So a big mistake a lot of entrepreneurs that I'm seeing that I talk to make, especially myself, is like, hey, let's just work harder. Let's lose more hair. Let's lose more cash, and let's lose more time. And I think that's a fallacy, right? The way to win in e-commerce today is to really work smarter. How can you actually build an operational system in place that allows that sort of functions with just minimal oversight from you? And if you look at how I'm doing today, I have two businesses that I run, one I'm on the board of and one I'm the CEO of, and that's how we divide the labor, right? So one of my biggest issues, and we'll get to that today, is how do you get your employees to rally around the cause of outsourcing? Because you're not here to actually prevent your team from growing. Outsourcing, I think, in my opinion, helps your team grow. So the way that we look at least myself, the way that I'm looking at outsourcing is you first need to optimize, because you have to understand what's on your plate today, what you're good at, what you're not good at. Then you can automate with technology and then outsource what you can't automate. But we start with optimization because you can't outsource an inefficient task. So you want to optimize your own life first. And for me, one of these exercises I do for workers is essentially I want them to create where they're putting their time. So I used to have 30 people working at Crucial. Now I'm down to 1 with everything outsourced and remotely distributed. But one of the questions I started asking a lot of people internally at my company was, hey, let's do a 2-week period. Where are you putting your time? And I started finding inefficiencies of where they're spending their time or things that they shouldn't even be doing. So we started listing like bottlenecks and creating a bucket list and an effort list to figure out, okay, this is where this person really excels, and this is where this person really doesn't excel as a weakness. And let's see how we can outsource the weakness and convert it into a strength.
Yeah.
And the best, go ahead, Nate.
No, I was just gonna say that's so huge. As an entrepreneur, you have to know what your weaknesses are. There are so many people that get into it and they're like, oh, I want to do marketing, I want to do the bookkeeping, I want to do the customer service, whatever it is. You have to figure out what you're good at and try to outsource or hire for those other things, turning weaknesses into strengths.
Totally. And so Julia said, I have a hard time delegating tasks and figuring out what to outsource. So before you even go to delegation, you have to think about what do you like doing and what are you really, really good at? Like, was I really good at running a warehouse? No, I got rid of it. Am I really, really good at doing Amazon PPC? I can do it, right? But it's not my core responsibility. It's not going to move the needle for my business. I can find someone else to do it, and like putting a value to my time as well. Like, I can put together IKEA furniture, but do I want to be putting together IKEA furniture? I can find someone to do it far cheaper and much faster than myself.
Agreed. I mean, that's really my whole business philosophy is, yes, I might try out a new system and process to get the hang of it and put in the right direction. But if it's not my core competency, I'm not doing it. And even in addition to that, especially when you're hiring employees, you're paying them $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a year. You want to maximize the time that they're spending on high level activities. If they're spending, and I found this back in the day, they were spending 30% of their time on data entry work or tasks that were outside of their core competency, you can get them an assistant. You can create systems and processes to take those things off their plate. So it's not only your strengths and weaknesses, it's also your business partners, it's also your employees. And as you build a bigger team, you'll even find the strengths and weaknesses of your outsourced staff, your outsourced workers, and be able to delegate it and move things around as well.
Yeah, so on that is my employees used to think that outsourcing was a threat to them. And we've really changed it to saying, hey, the VA or the person that's supporting you is going to be your personal VA. So other companies, they give out free lunch, they give out whatever, purified water. We give all of our employees here virtual assistants. And it empowers them to delegate and to elevate.
Agreed. Once you get them over that hurdle that you're not replacing them, that you're using it to maximize them and have them work on expansion and growing your business rather than the day-to-day repetitive stuff, they open up to it a lot faster. And if they don't, I mean, that's not necessarily the kind of person you want to work with. You want someone who really wants to be focused on those high-level things and that's open to getting a VA or multiple VAs to help them do it.
Yeah, and so I've incentivized my employee to essentially make it in her best interest to remotely distribute work and to get those things that she's not good at off her plate.
And David, yes, we'll definitely send you copies of the slides afterwards or make them available to you guys.
So the next step here is just automation. So we try to automate what it would take human labor much more time to do in a manual way. So anything that's inefficient that you can use technology to automate, we do. So here's the famous tech stack of like every single software that I use to run my business, and FreeUp should be on here as well. So with this tech stack, a few of them I want to point out that are very, very important to automation. Just pointing out a few. So somebody had asked SOP process. And so the big one for me here is Zoom. So I use Zoom. Every time I want something to get done, I record it on Zoom with the freelancer, and I will ask the freelancer to create the SOP for me. So it really removes myself as a bottleneck having to actually create the SOP, because I think no one wants to be doing that on this call. So just show people with a screen share, video it, throw it on Dropbox, and you actually have that as a resource forever. So if there's something that's missing in the SOP or if they want to rewatch it again, they can go rewatch it. The other tool I use for automation, like I used to want to have all these VAs doing forecasting and demand planning, right? So selfish plug, right, Skubana, it automates and replaces human labor so that I don't have to think about purchase orders anymore. It will actually algorithmically create a purchase order awaiting my approval with a nice little bow on top. So it doesn't have to eat lunch. It doesn't have to go to the bathroom. It works all the freaking time, 24/7, 365 employee, and doesn't even complain or ask for a raise. The last one I want to point out that I'm using heavy, so I talked about Zoom, I talked about Skubana. Maybe the last one to point out here is return automation with Returnly. I'm using them tremendously to automate a lot of the return process. And then I use Boomerang, which is right here below Skype. Boomerang is essentially you send an email, or you can send an email into the future, or if you want to get rid of that cognitive processing power and thinking, okay, did that person write me back yet? Or I'm expecting them to write me back. When are they writing me back? It'll boomerang back into your box. It'll return back into your box. Again, lifting that heavy weight of having to think about it on your brain, on your mind. Anything else you want to point out here?
Yeah, I had a question for you. So a lot of things, especially as you're growing a business, let's take FreeUp, for example, the SOPs that you might start with are going to change a lot over time, and you have to keep that stuff updated. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know I have my own on how you go about with the SOPs if they're changing, if they're not in that set place yet.
Yeah, so for us, and you can tell me how you roll on your end, for us, the SOP is a living, breathing document. So as somebody asks a question, or maybe they're like, I'm a little bit fuzzy on this particular thing, I'll say, hey, refer to the SOP, and they'll say, hey, maybe it's not in there. And I'll say, okay, fine, it's not in there, go update it with the proper information. And we constantly are updating it. So you can put it into a Word doc and then re-upload it into the project management software that I use, which I'll go into later on. What are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, so very similar. So I avoid doing videos early on in the SOP unless I think that something is finalized or close to finalized. If stuff is changing, I don't want to be recording a video after video. So what I'll do is I'll make the SOPs in writing, and I'll have, just like you, I'll have the VA write the SOP, and then I make it part of their responsibility to keep the SOP up to date over time. And one of the things that we'll talk about later is creating a culture where people give feedback, they share ideas. The SOP isn't the way that Nate says it is because I'm the boss. It's, hey, this is what we've come up with so far. Let's all work together to improve it. And as we agree to changes, as we agree to improving certain things, it's part of their requirement to keep it updated at all times. I never want to log in there and be like, wow, the past months of changes aren't even in here, because you never know when someone's going to get sick or you want to make that next hire, and you have to keep it up to date at all times. So very similarly, it'll be up there. We'll be changing things. We'll be working together. We're on the same side. But at the end of the day, I don't have time to keep it updated. So it's part of their responsibility to make sure it's updated at all times.
And do you keep it in Google Docs? Is there a certain, what software are you using to maintain them?
Yeah, Google Docs.
Cool.
What about you?
So, so right now we actually have just like Word documents that we have loaded into Basecamp.
Nice.
So that's probably the one different thing from this technology stack, is that I used to use Trello and Slack in my business and kind of piece these together. And now and you'll see this later on where I reveal this, where I'm using Basecamp, which is kind of like Skubana, which unifies everything, but for project management and teams. So it looks like we had a question come in, G-Tech, Rolando, he said, what do you use Alexa for? So for me, we're using Alexa. This is just one technology that I use to understand sort of what somebody's traffic is at their site. I've been very into lately exploring how to drive more traffic to the site organically. And Alexa is a really good indicator of what somebody's traffic rank is in the United States. It's not perfect, but it'll tell you how many backlinks the company has along with what their traffic rank is. Great question.
Great question.
So outsourcing. Nate, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So the biggest mistake, and then we'll answer some of the questions that came in, is those vague estimates, those vague due dates. In your mind, you have to think black and white. I need everything to be black and white, because the second you get into those gray areas, and a lot of times when you're dealing with something you might not be comfortable with, whether it's web design or bookkeeping, there are a lot of gray areas. You have to try to keep it black and white. And we talked about one of those things, hey, like maybe I can't afford it. Maybe I don't have a long-term budget. That doesn't mean that you have to hire full-time VAs from the start. I have a team of 15 people. I didn't just wake up one day and said, okay, I'm hiring 15 people today. I started off with more one-time projects, what I could afford, and then I grew from there. Hey, let's get 2 hours of my day back. Now let's get someone 20 hours a week, 40. And when you're dealing with those one-time projects, especially when you're working with someone for the first time, you want to make sure that the estimates and the due dates are there, hard-coded. So with the estimates, it could be a fixed price estimate, hey, $500. It could be, hey, 10 hours. But 10 hours can mean a lot of different things. They could work 10 hours in a day. They could work 10 hours over the course of a month. So you really want to nail down, hey, this is due next Tuesday. And not only is it due next Tuesday, but it's due next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Hard, black and white, no gray area. And that's going to lead to a much better experience for you. I've seen so many times where the person gets to Tuesday and they're like, wow, I needed this project at 10 a.m. Tuesday. Where is it? And the freelancer's like, oh, I'm wrapping this up, but I was planning on getting it to you by 8 p.m. tonight. And all of that could have been avoided if you just thought of it in that black and white tone right from the very beginning. And Chad, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe in setting hard dates. It's interesting. Right now I'm actually having my own issue with one of my VAs. He is being a little bit defiant, where he's like, hey, I don't really need to work more hours. Like, I can accomplish what I need to do in this time frame. And I'm like, but here's the deal, is you're only working 10 hours a week, and then we have so many other things that aren't being accomplished. So I need you to maximize your time that you're working. It's not about face time, it's about performance. And right now you're underperforming. So I'm actually thinking about just actually like letting him go, right? It's just not working out, where he's refusing to actually put in the time, estimate his hours, but refuses to also put a due date attached to his work.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point based on my past experiences where we don't proceed forward until you can give me an estimate. I'll give you time to factor in revisions. I understand, especially when I'm dealing with developers, stuff comes up, APIs change. There might be things that me as a business person, not a developer, haven't even thought of. But at the same time, we can't move forward until you give me an estimate and a due date. Until you do that, we're still in that discovery phase. So getting into that habit is going to lead to a much better experience.
So if you're doing like a one-off task, like, hey, I want you to redesign my website, fine. What do you do about someone who's actually running, like, let's just say you outsource your Amazon ad spend. What do you do about, how do you assign essentially estimated hours and a due date for something that's a continuous process?
Yeah, so I'm talking more about the short-term projects. For the long-term, it might be. I mean, you use someone at FreeUp for the PPC. So I mean, it's a lot more. Okay, it's going to be X amount of hours per month, and they overestimate a little bit because they don't want any surprises. And it's more ongoing. There's no real due date, but you can still get those estimates.
Cool. All right, next mistake.
Before that, let's answer this question. So we're looking to hire someone to take over our Instagram 2 hours a day. Requires a creative person who understands the tone of the company. What's the best way to create accurate criteria to hire someone for this role? So I can only speak for FreeUp. We try to make it as simple as possible. Right inside your account, when you click request a worker, it actually asks you 10 questions to kind of help you along that process. Okay, we need 2 hours a day. We want non-US. Okay, here's the skill set required. And the other side of that is providing information about your business into the worker request, whether it's links to your website, links to other Instagram accounts that you like, that you want to follow. Communication goes both ways. And just like we encourage the VAs to communicate at a high level and provide the client as much information as possible, the more information you provide them, the better experience you're going to have. And they'll be able to be like, oh, I can or cannot do that. And once you get people that think they can, then it's up to you to talk to them and figure out who's the best fit for your business, because even the best social media VAs in the world aren't the best fit for every single company in the world. But you want to start off by using that worker request to get as much info as possible, sharing as much information about your business, and then meeting them to figure out who's actually the best fit for you. All right, mistake number 2. So giving new workers lots of work without testing. And I see this all the time. A lot of people think that after the interview, that's it. Okay, this guy passed my process. Let's go. Here's a 40 hours a week. Let's do this huge project. It'll be done in 3 months. Not the most ideal way to go about it. You want to build a relationship. And as a business owner, you really want to build a Rolodex of freelancers that you can trust. And the only way that a freelancer gets into my so-called trusted Rolodex is by proving themselves. So after I hire them, I haven't made that commitment yet. I'm treating it as an investment. And I want to know if someone's going to be good before I invest a lot of my own money and, more importantly, my time into that person. So if you have a big website, let's say, and you're hiring someone to do it, give them, hey, do 1 page. Then let's talk about it. Maybe give me feedback. Let's see, or I'll give you feedback. Let's see how receptive you are to that feedback to get exactly what I want before we move forward. If I'm hiring someone to, let's say, be my assistant and work under me, hey, let's see you respond to a few client emails. Let's see how that goes before I give you more and more tasks, before I invest more time into you. What are your thoughts on that, Chad?
Completely agree. Look, I think at least when you start off with VAs, you want to give them a very short leash. Some of the things when in the interview process, I just made sure they have a strong command of English. I want to make sure that they're super organized and know how to use certain software stacks. Of course, if they've done work in the e-commerce world, it's a cherry on top. I do look at their samples. I sometimes even ask them to record a video, and I have a conversation. I think you mentioned this a little bit, is that like some people view outsourcing to workers as a transaction, and I actually don't view it that way. I look at it as an interaction. It's an opportunity to interact and build that relationship, because you want them to have a vested interest, even though they're not part of, quote unquote, your payroll.
Exactly. And I've seen situations where the client will hire someone for an hour, and that 1 hour didn't go exactly the way the client wants, so they move on right away. Where I'm giving that person feedback. I'm still giving them a chance. I mean, if they don't take my feedback, or at the end of the day, they're not the right fit, I'll still move on. But you have to remember, a lot of the times, these VAs are working for many different clients, and every client has their own expectations. What's good for one client might be bad for another. So you have to give them a chance to set the expectations of what you like and what you don't like. And after that, if it's still not what you're looking for, move on. But there's usually that, you can see the chart here. It's, hey, I hire them, they do the project, they return it back, I give feedback, see what happens after that feedback, and then I decide whether I want to move forward or not.
There's a question here from GTech. When should you think about hiring a backup VA if your primary VA gets sick, leaves, or other reason, typhoon, internet, and don't get stuck without anyone doing the required tasks?
Great question. So a lot of it depends on the task. I'll get requests all the time from people, hey, I want a customer service person that can work 7 days a week, 50 hours a week. And I'm like, listen, you're the client. I'm more than happy to try to fill that request. But it would make a little bit more sense if you get 25 hours from 2 different people. They can sub in for each other. People get sick. People have time off. So you have to think of it more in protecting yourself. If you're hiring someone for 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But if you are getting into that 30 to 40 range, you do want to have that backup. And a lot of times it's tough to keep a backup if that person doesn't have consistent work. So you might want to give them more consistent work, maybe on a lower scale, 5 to 10, and give them that opportunity to step in when needed as a backup, or try to split it up as much as possible.
One of my biggest pet peeves is actually having to repeat myself. And that's why I suggested doing the Zoom video, because you say it once and you now have that asset. And yeah, maybe you develop your SOP first and then you go in and you actually walk someone through the video, fine. I prefer to do it the other way, the video first, walking people through once I have all my thoughts together. But having a backup and having that video is incredibly important, because now you can onboard staff much quicker. It kind of becomes a learning management resource system for yourself.
Totally agree. I mean, that's one of my biggest things. You can't be my assistant if I have to repeat myself. And not only that, I make them responsible for short-term and long-term projects. So they might have their day-to-day stuff, responding to my Skypes while I'm on webinar like this, but there's up and down time in every business. So in addition to their day-to-day work, I'll assign short-term projects and long-term projects. And the last thing that I want is to assign someone a short-term project, and in 3 weeks, I'm like, where is this? Or even 1 week, and they're like, oh, I forgot to write this down. That's not okay. I want to be able to have a VA that I can say things one time. They keep track of it. They know what's short-term. They know what's long-term. They're chipping away at it in addition to that day-to-day stuff that they're doing.
Before we move into mistake number 3, there's a question from Pellegrino. When you hire a new worker, how do you protect your sensitive data, passwords of your app accounts? I can speak from personal experience. We use LastPass, and allows us to share passwords without having to reveal the password. How about you, Nate?
I use LastPass. And I mean, it's almost a broader question of security. One thing to keep in mind is, I mean, I've been hiring VAs for over 8 years, and I've never had one security issue, real security issue, knock on wood. And we've been doing it for free up for 3 years. So I'm sure that if we bill enough hours, eventually something will happen. It's just the percentages. But the risk is a lot lower than you think. And even if you hire your best friend to sit right next to you, there's always a chance that they do something stupid or they jeopardize your security in some way. So you have to know that there's always going to be risk. You can use programs like LastPass to minimize the risk as much as possible. If you're using like PayPal or credit cards or even Amazon accounts, you can give sub-user permissions and give them only access to what they need. But again, always going to be a risk. And it's your job to build trust with that worker over time, giving them more and more access to minimize that risk, along with the programs like the LastPass of the world. Cool. So hiring the cheapest worker. I'd love to hear how many of you out there have hired college students like I have. I mean, when I started hiring, I was 20. I wasn't going to go out there and have some 30-year-old interview with me. I was hiring other people that were in my college. And I mean, I've seen everything from people oversleeping their shift for 3 hours to drinking beer on the job, everything that goes along with it. And the thing about hiring college students is their number one priority is not you. It's college, and rightfully so. And for me and my business personally, I'm at a point where if I'm hiring someone, I want to be their number one priority. So while I've had plenty of people that have had decent experiences or good experience with college students, I would definitely avoid it other than very small, maybe routine intern-like tasks. If you're going to go cheap, know the risks. And this really goes into outsourcing. I wouldn't invest a lot of time into someone doing it. For example, I use relatively cheap workers for lead generation tasks. And the reason that I'm okay with it is because I only invest an hour into working with them, into getting them set up. If they quit on me in 2 months or 6 months, it's not the end of the world. The system's there. They can learn it really fast, and it's okay. But if I was going to invest any amount of time into someone, I want to make sure that they're happy with what they're being paid. And I'll even ask them, and I'll double check with them before I hire them, making sure that they're okay with the rate, because the last thing you want to happen is hire someone for $1, $2 an hour, invest time into them, and then the second they get a higher paying job, they're out the door. And it's one of the reasons that I don't lowball people. If someone wants $30 an hour, very rarely will I be like, hey, can you take 20? Because at that time, they might need that job really badly and they might accept that 20. But the second that they get a higher job offer, they're out the door. And it usually is not a good investment for me. We all know the phrase, you pay for what you get. Really try to figure out what the market rates are for different things. If you go to freeup.com/pricing, on the marketplace, freelancers set their own rates. So on the pricing part, we tried to give ballparks for what the market is for different things. And we're constantly updating it, trying to mimic the market as much as possible, whether this is how much a US Facebook ad expert is, this is how much a data entry person in the Philippines is, trying to give people a perspective so they know what they're really getting into.
So Nate, on that, I'm curious. So right now, by the way, when I outsource things and I really choose geographically where I want to spend my time and find those workers, I have noticed that I'm not a cheap person. I do it to be cost efficient, as I felt just the same as you, right? You were hiring people, they were leaving the company, sort of you had a drain on your talent internally and decided to outsource. And I think that's what really made us decide to outsource. But I'm in EO, this entrepreneurship organization in New York, and someone in my group outsources to the Philippines. And when he told me how much he pays his workers in the Philippines, I was like literally jaw dropped. So as I'm paying a lot more, and I'm curious from your perspective, how much should you be paying for a VA? What is the right range, if there is one?
Yeah, I mean, there really is no right range. What's important to me is the person is happy for what you're paying them. And I look at it, it's normal VA in the Philippines, if they don't have some crazy skill like development, you're in that $5 to $10 an hour range. But you can also get cheaper if you're giving more. So for example, if you're hiring someone for 40 hours every week, you're hiring them on that full-time basis, you can negotiate a fixed monthly price that they'll be happy with. And we have clients on FreeUp that do that all the time. What we try to avoid is that, okay, like we'll pay you $2 an hour, and it usually doesn't work out well long-term. And all that stuff is changing. The other side of it is, how much is that VA bringing to the table? If you're starting from total scratch, maybe this person is new to freelancing, they're new to e-commerce, yes, you can get a lot of those cheaper rates, but Filipinos know the market just like we know the market, and they know, hey, once I'm trained in being an Amazon assistant, why would I accept $2 an hour when I can get plenty of jobs in that 4 to 7 range? So, I mean, we've all seen people that have gotten really good deals on VAs, and all the power to them. I just give you a little bit of caution when doing that, to think of the bigger picture and your time and energy and investment.
Totally. Like my power all-star lineup of VAs are making above 10 an hour, but they're like my external brain. Like they're like my right hand people. So I feel okay paying them what I do. And because I know it's a rich premium from what others are getting paid, but they're providing rich services simultaneously.
Yeah, and my people, same thing. I'm in that 10 to 20 range for someone in the Philippines, but these people are really valuable to my company. If they were to leave, it would cost me way more than that to replace them. So it's in my best interest to make sure they're happy, not only with the culture and the business and the goals, but also with what they're getting paid. And to me, it's worth it. But a lot of times they started off at that lower rate, and as the business grew, I increased it on purpose to retain them and make sure they're happy. And at the end of the day, you can ask the people directly. I mean, that's what a lot of people forget to do. Ask them for feedback. Ask them if they're really happy. Dig deeper. Are you sure? And get that good feedback to help you make decisions on what's right for your business. And there might be some people where you don't want to increase the rate and they want to raise, but you're like, hey, you think, hey, maybe for that $1 I can get more bang for my buck. And that's okay too. But you should really figure out where they stand on the rate, because that's what's most important.
Yeah, so specifically for VAs, I'll go to the Philippines. Like I mentioned, I'm looking for literacy, very strong literacy rate in the Philippines, someone that's organized, understands technology. They've used Trello, Dropbox, Basecamp. If they've used Seller Central, it's a plus, cherry on top. communication. I want to have a video call with them. I want to make sure that the video call doesn't drop. I want to understand what internet they're using. I want to actually understand the samples, what they've done in the past, what does their work history look like, what makes them happy, what makes them tick, and what they want to get paid.
Agreed. So FreeUp gets hundreds of applicants every week. We vet them for skill, attitude, communication. We're about 40% Philippines, 40% US, and 20% scattered around the world. And like you said, we focus not only on their skill set and their talent, but that external stuff. I mean, for attitude, we want people who are positive, who don't get aggressive the second something goes wrong. I hate bookkeeping. The people that I hire to do my bookkeeping need to love bookkeeping as much as I love being an entrepreneur. And for communication, I mean, I don't care how talented you are. I don't care what your attitude is. If you and I can't communicate at the highest possible level, it's not going to work out. And that's why we have 15 pages of communication best practices that freelancers have to memorize and get tested on before they get into the marketplace. And we hold them accountable to it too.
Nice. I may have to hit you up for that, Doc. This slide is just like you said, you have a mix of, I think I actually have a pretty strong mix between 40-40 as well. So I have some in the Philippines. I have some that are in Spain. I have some developers that are in Eastern Europe for my website. And then I have some PPC people, like I mentioned, that are here in the United States doing ad spend. So I really pick and choose where I want to, but these are all the people that are part of my starting lineup that help us get the ball down the field.
Love it.
And one of the things that I like to do is I have task-driven things. For example, like you mentioned, bookkeeping, customer support, blog writing, someone to get backlinks for our site. Those are actually individual tasks that I actually hire special people that have that superpower. For my VAs that are like my right-hand people, they are more role-based. Like they can be doing many different things. They're kind of more generalist. They're like Swiss Army knives. And we'll use them to cover these things like social media, my email inbox, for example, product research, updating our listings, creating this PowerPoint. Now, funny story is when I first started outsourcing, I had my VA texting my wife. So that, guys, is a big no-no. My wife got caught wind to it because there's a lot of like moi, XO. My wife kind of needs that check-in maybe three times a week, or 3 times a day. 3 times a week, that'd be amazing. 3 times a day. So I had my VA go in and be like, hey, by the way, it's appreciation time, or it's like, hey, send a quick heart. And so you have to really pick and choose what you want the VA to do. That's really the essence of that story, is picking and choosing. And sometimes there's just there's just a job that you just cannot outsource, and discussing things with your wife is one of them.
You know, Will Mitchell from Startup Bros, he's a friend of mine, and one of his FreeUp VAs manages his fantasy football team every year. So you can really outsource anything.
That's amazing. So it's funny. This slide here is something a little bit older I wanted to show people. I used to set up using Trello. We would use this as our delegation project management tool. And things were kind of falling through the cracks. Like, for example, like customer support, just things would just escape this, essentially, because we would drag from the backlog to do to doing and done in a very agile way. And things were still just getting lost in translation. And we were using Trello and we were using Slack, and like we had to keep on sending reminders. So I actually have converted our entire business using Basecamp. This is something new that we started using, and it is killer. It combines like Slack, and I have no incentive, or there's no financial incentive for me to be sharing this, but this essentially splits our every team in Basecamp. You can assign who's a part of which team, and then you can actually chat internally in those teams with a campfire. You can set up automatic check-ins, which we'll get into in a second. You can put in there to-dos, and then you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's where we house all of our SOPs. So for me, this just like unifies everything in one place, so we can have real-time visibility in terms of what's happening and move a lot quicker.
I love it. Off of the tasks and the roles, what I like to tell people, because I talk to clients all the time that don't really understand what type of person they're looking for. So I tried to make it easy and divide it up into 3 levels, keeping in mind that these are real people and they don't always fit in a perfect box. But you got the basic level workers, you got the mid-level, and you got the expert level. So for basic level workers, they're non-US, that 5 to 10 range. They're followers, they're doers. They're for clients that have their systems and processes in place, and these workers are going to follow them. Yes, they have years of experience because FreeUp isn't a marketplace for newbies, but they're there to follow a client's systems and processes. If you don't know Facebook ads, you can't just hire someone for $5 an hour to run your Facebook ads. You're not going to have a good experience. Then you have the mid-level people who are more specialized. They might be a writer, a bookkeeper. They optimize Amazon listings 8 hours, 10 hours a day. Those people, you're not hiring them to consult with you, and you're not hiring them to teach, or you're not hiring them to have you teach them, although you can work with them to tweak things for your needs. They're doers. They're there to do those specific tasks whenever you need them over and over. And then you've got those expert level people, the 20 to 50 plus per hour. Those are your top-notch experts, your consultants. They can do high-level stuff like the ad spend, develop websites. They can consult with you and audit your Amazon business or Shopify store, whatever it is. They can execute high-level projects. They can project manage. They can even help create systems and processes for the basic level workers. So really, figuring out for every task, whether you need that basic level, mid-level, or expert level, gives you a really good head start to what you're trying to hire.
Yeah, well said. So I'm just saying, this has been a game changer. This is what the view looks like for all of our outsourced people. It helps us put all the pieces together in a cohesive strategy. This is also a really nice thing I like about Basecamp is this automatic check-ins. So like I said, there's like things that just have to be done on a daily basis. And I just don't have the brain capacity to constantly be like, hey, did you look at all of our new product reviews on this listing? Or how's our pricing looking? Or did you update inventory on Wayfair? Or did you look at FBA? Whatever those things that you're constantly asking, stop it. And so this helped us put an end to that. Now we have automatic check-ins, and now there's literally nothing that gets dropped because they have to actually confirm and write yes, yes, yes to all these automatic check-ins that pop up on their plate. And I'm a huge fan of Basecamp's founder. What's his name? Freed. He speaks and I listen. Like he is someone that I really admire in the software space and has built a really, really great tool.
Awesome. So mistake 4, we mentioned so in the order of figuring out your VA, first you identify your strengths and your weaknesses, what you're trying to hire for. Second, you want to identify what your perfect worker looks like. Is it an internal employee? Is it a VA? Is it 10 hours a week? Are they in the US, the Philippines? What skill set, what background? You put in a request, you hire, you interview them, you focus on that attitude and communication just as much as you focus on the skill. Okay, you hire them. And next is so important, and this is where so many people go wrong, and that's setting the clear expectations right from the beginning. And that can include anything from your pet peeves to how you want to communicate. Is it Slack? Is it Trello? Is it Basecamp? To what's your culture? What's important to you as you're running your business? Do you want feedback? Do you not want feedback? Is it more cutthroat? Is it more friendly? What's the expectations in terms of the actual projects that they're going to be working on? What are the goals of the company? And we have a free document you can get right on the FreeUp blog called the Client Expectations Doc. And it helps you clearly outline this so you can hand them a piece of paper, have them review it, answer any questions, be on the same page right from the beginning. And so many issues that you have with VAs down the line happen because you don't take the time right after the hire to set the expectations. And a lot of times when you go down the wrong path and you start to have a bad experience with the worker, I always tell people, go back to the beginning, reset those expectations, have that one-on-one meeting, get on the same page, and try to have that good experience again going forward before you cut ship, because a lot of the issues can be resolved just by resetting those expectations.
Totally.
5, we talked about this a little bit in terms of having a backup VA, but putting all your eggs in one basket. I always tell the story of when I was in college and I was running this business and I was a year and a half in and I was having more success than I ever had up to that point. And I hired a manager of the day and they were going to be in charge of everything. And I taught them how to do customer service, how to do orders, how to list products. I had one supplier that I was crushing it with, and I didn't have any need to get anyone else because that supplier was amazing. And I went on my first vacation in over a year to Myrtle Beach. And on the first day of that vacation, I get a call from the employee at the time saying, hey, my parents want me to focus on school, can't work for you anymore. Boom, months of training out the door. Get a call from my supplier saying they no longer want to work with us anymore. Boom, company had to reset. And then just to top it off, a call from my accountant saying that someone had stolen my identity. So it went from an ultimate high to a low, and it was all because I didn't diversify. So I didn't make that mistake again. When I got back, boom, let's get as many different suppliers as possible. And it wouldn't be the last supplier that dropped me. And same thing with hiring. I departmentalize, like Chad said before. We have customer service, we have listing, we have inventory, and it wouldn't be the last person that quit on me either. But the next people that quit, it was much easier to replace. And I'm very happy that I learned that lesson as a young entrepreneur rather than years later.
And how do you deal with, like, do you have any people that are at your company that are indisposable?
Yeah, but we're constantly working. And indisposable is, I really like working with them, and I hope they don't quit. Not indisposable as if they quit, the business is going down. And I think that's a big difference. And it's always going to be a hassle whenever someone quits that you really like working with. But I mean, by doing the other things that we talked about before and having that really good culture and that feedback loop, our retention rate is 95%. So it's not often that people are leaving. But if they do, the SOPs are in place, they're updated, like we talked about before. It's diversified enough where other people know those tasks. So until we find that replacement, other people can come in and hold down the fort. And I mean, same thing. If someone needs to take a vacation, the business doesn't stop. It moves forward because we've been diversified, because we've spread things around, because we have people cross-trained and we have backups.
So before we go on to mistake 6, Benjamin writes, we use Google Docs to record our SOPs. We have our SOPs for just about every position process in our business. They're very, very detailed. However, there are so many moving parts in our business that just finding the correct SOP for something, whether to learn that process or to update the SOP, can be very daunting and time consuming. How do you organize your SOPs and so that you or your employees can find what they need without wasting a lot of time? I put my SOPs in Basecamp in each department. So customer support has all the SOPs there, and you can actually split them up into folders as well, which is like daily tasks versus routines. So essentially, that's how we divide it. How do you suggest, Nate, if there's any difference?
Yeah, we use Google Docs, but it's in folders by team. So the SOPs for the billing and accounting team are different than the SOPs for my assistants that do more customer service work. So everyone might have access to it, but they're really focused on their own SOPs, and it keeps it more organized when you can divide it up as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, Benjamin, I'm going to put something out there if you're listening, an offer of a lifetime. I have a lot of SOPs. I'm sure you do as well, and we can use some new ones, and I'm sure you can use some new ones. So perhaps if you want to swap, feel free to email me. Or if there's other people that have really robust SOPs and they want sort of to get an idea of what we've got on our end, I'm interested in doing some SOP swaps. If you're interested, email me.
That's awesome.
Number 6.
Not encouraging and listening to feedback and ideas. And if you are not doing this right now, it will change the entire way that you're running your business. And I encourage you to have weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, whatever you want to do. And part of those meetings have to be listening. As much as you're telling people what to do and what you want done, you have to hear from them. How can your business improve? How can you improve as an owner? How can the other people around you improve? Creating an environment where feedback isn't scary, where people aren't afraid to be offended or that their job is on the line because you criticize them, is very, very important. Some of the best ideas, the ones that have made me the most money or saved me the most money, came from other people, not from me. So knowing that, if you create that culture, it'll really take your business to the next level. And I mean, it's gotten to the point where feedback is mandatory. It's something you have to do. I don't want to hire robots. Even if I'm paying someone $5 an hour, part of their job is coming in every day with new ideas, with feedback. And when we do yearly evaluations, we meet with everyone at the beginning of the year. And part of it is be brutally honest with me. Tell me how I can improve. And if they say, Nate, you're the best boss in the world, the company's awesome, I wouldn't change a thing, we don't accept that. That's not okay. There's always areas that we can improve, and we really drive it home that I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to remember this forever and hold it against you. We want your feedback so that we can always improve and make it not only a better business for me, but for you as well. And we take that feedback seriously. Now, that doesn't always mean that every piece of feedback you can implement the next day. Sometimes it takes more than that. Sometimes feedback you might disagree with, and you don't want to apply it to your business. But at the same time, getting that feedback and creating that feedback loop, really important. Even on the marketplace where we have 1,000 freelancers with Free Up, when people give us feedback, whether it's a client or a freelancer, we write that all down. We take it seriously. I mean, at the end of the day, if the clients aren't happy or the freelancers aren't happy, the business isn't going to grow. So we take that feedback seriously and we apply it as fast as we possibly can. What are your thoughts on that, Chad?
I completely agree. One of the things that we are an automated question that goes out through Basecamp is not only what did you accomplish this week, but what are the latest books you've read? Are there any things that you feel like that can give you the tools to succeed at this organization more than you are already today? And so we're constantly getting that feedback from the VAs and encouraging people to give us feedback because we take that and we implement it if it's actually something that's helpful.
Love it. Feedback is key. If you take anything away from this, go to the VAs you're using right now and ask them for feedback. It's a really powerful tool. So we all want to motivate people, right? Part of the difference between a leader and a manager is how you can motivate people. Instead of pushing them and cracking the whip like the old-fashioned bosses do, you want to be a leader. You want to be out in front. You want to have people follow you and be motivated and want to get more done and want to grow the company and treat it like it's theirs. And I always get asked, how can I make the VAs more involved? How can I make them feel more a part of the business? How can I get the most out of them? And it all comes down to sharing goals. There's no one out there that wants to be handed a project, hand the project back complete, and get a new project without any idea of how their project impacted the business. You want to share the goals. With Free Up, since the beginning, hey, we're trying to bill 5,000 hours a week. We're trying to bill 10,000 hours a week. Even our graphic designer that might work 3 hours a week with us knows that what our goals are. And it's so important. It makes people feel like they're a part of the business, that the work they're doing actually matters. It motivates them and makes them work harder. And the companies that are not doing this are really missing out. And a lot of the time, that's what turnover is. People will go to a company where they feel more appreciative, they feel more involved, even if the pay isn't there. There are a lot of people that care more about being at a place where they're a part of the goals and part of the missions and part of the values than they do about making that extra $2 per hour. And one of the best ways to cut costs and save money is by setting those goals and making people feel like they should be there.
Yeah, we just had a State of the Union where me and my partner DJ, we went and we addressed not only what worked, but what didn't work last year, and then where we're going for 2018. The employees and colleagues here loved it. They were like so inspired. They felt like they can really make an impact and make a dent on the organization. Like, I think it just really aligned everybody and got everyone rowing in the same direction. Like, directionally, all the arrows are pointing straight ahead when we launched this goal sharing initiative, and it went really well.
I love it. I mean, it's so powerful when you can tell someone how they impact the company and also just be honest with them. If you had a bad week the week before, hey, orders are low. It'll motivate them even more. You have a good week. Hey, great work, everyone. We did this together. Make them feel a part of something. So the next mistake 8, the people that are afraid of conflict out there, and I'd love for you guys to post if you are, because I know how common it is. I talk to clients all the time. You have to look at freelancers as business owners, as a professional relationship. And with those professional relationships, sometimes have difficult conversations. And I encourage those difficult conversations. If Chad is using FreeUp and he's not happy with something, I want him to tell me to my face. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm looking at it as he's helping me. He wants me to improve my business and how I'm doing things. And the same thing goes when you're dealing with freelancers. If you give someone feedback, if you have those difficult conversations with them and they take it personally and their work suffers from it, those aren't the people that I want to work with. I don't want the people like that. I stay away from people like that. I want someone where we can have critical conversations knowing that we are both on the same side. We are working together for a common goal to improve your business or the process or their work, whatever it is, and really hammering that home. And I encourage you to have those difficult conversations with people, to give them a chance to improve and provide them that feedback, however uncomfortable it might be. And it's a skill set that'll become more comfortable over time, because you'll realize who those people are that you want to work with long term. And by having those conversations and digging a little bit deeper, sometimes you'll find out what the root cause for that is. If someone's performance just tanked out of nowhere, sometimes there's a reason for it. And I always give the example, we have an incredible bookkeeper from the Philippines. Awesome. We bill $500,000 a month with FreeUp. He handles all of it. He does an amazing job. And I mean, he rarely makes mistakes, if ever. And beginning of last year in January, he made a few mistakes. And I was like, Mars, this isn't like you. What's going on? And I was a little bit open. And it turns out he was just burnt out. We had gone through a crazy busy season. He had crushed it. We're in January right now, and he was just tired. And so it was like, hey, take 4 days off, 5 days off. And he came back and just crushed it. And because I had a conversation with him, I told him, hey, like, this is what I don't like about what's going on right now. And then I gave him an opportunity to share with me and give me feedback. It led to a much better relationship than some clients that would have either yelled at him or been too scared to confront him because he might quit on me if I do. So I hope you get that takeaway from it. Confrontation, if you do it the right way, is a very powerful tool.
Yeah, just real quick, I took a screenshot of this and I just sent it to one of my employees because like we've been meaning to have a conversation with an underperforming marketing assistant. And so we're going to address the conflict based on this. It's like, look, we need to have this conversation. He hasn't performed his duties. He's only willing to work 10 hours a week. He's defiant. So what we're going to do is we're going to segment all his responsibilities. And then we'll be talking after this webinar and we'll say, okay, Nate, we've got all these things. You know anybody in your network that can fulfill on these obligations and duties?
Exactly. Very, very powerful. And I'll give a one quick tip. Let's say you do have someone that's underperforming. You have that talk. Maybe you don't see that improvement. Instead of just cutting ties with them right away, which might not be a good way to handle your investment, start taking things off their plate little by little. Hire someone and start doing that. And a lot of times that light bulb will finally go off like, hey, I'm losing this opportunity. I'm losing my project. And if it doesn't go off, eventually you'll have taken everything off their plate and they're not as important to you, not as valuable to you anymore. So that's usually how I handle things. It's very rare that I'll just cut someone off completely and set my business back. I do it very strategically after that confrontation if it doesn't work. Yeah,
I like that. That's why we're working on segmenting what he's up to right now and then figure out what we can remove off his plate until there's nothing left on his plate and then bon voyage.
Exactly. So to keep it, I want everyone to keep this in mind that no one has a 100% hiring record. You're going to make mistakes. There are things outside your control. You can do everything right, from figuring out what you need and the perfect person to that interview, that person with the great attitude, communication. You can set expectations. You can have meetings and set goals. And there are just things you can't control that'll lead to some bad hiring experiences. It's like baseball. You have to focus on the process. If you hit the ball right on the line at someone, you don't change up your swing. You might want to make tweaks over time to improve and get better, but focus on the process. Focus on the things you can control. Focus on the hiring strategies, what's working. And just like basic problem-solving skills, once you get to the end and something doesn't work, you want to put steps in place to prevent that from happening again. And a lot of that is improving the process and continuing to tweak and tweak and tweak and make it better. And that's really where FreeUp's interview process came. It's from 8 years of hiring, 8 years of making adjustments, 8 years of improving the process.
Love it. So sometimes just when I'm like talking to different individuals or I have a job post out there, I'll like ask like what their favorite ice cream is to just make sure they're detail oriented. This is like one little small thing that I like to include in some of my job posts. We've kind of, we're a little bit up on time. So I think that everyone gets a sense of what the mistakes are, unless there's anything you want to really like point to. Nate, is like the number 1 or 2 takeaway.
Yeah, I would just say setting the expectations and diversifying are incredibly important.
Cool. Before we get to, I think maybe we should jump to, we were going to go through a few other things. Maybe we can get to them. We're really coming up on the hour here. So I want to get into a little bit of the offer that you have, Nate, for everyone on the phone call today or on the webinar. Yeah.
So for those of you that haven't become a client at FreeUp, it's free to sign up. There's no monthly fees. You can end the relationship with us at any time. It's in our best interest to get you freelancers, workers that you like, that help your business, that free up your time. We've pre-vetted all these freelancers before they come in. We have protections in place to make sure you're taken care of. And if you mention this webinar right now, not only do you get a $50 credit, but you'd also get an hourly or $1 off the hourly rate of your first hire forever. So I encourage you to take advantage of this offer. Make sure you do it in the next 48 hours. And Chad, I just want to thank you for having me on and letting me share this with the community.
Thanks for joining. Love what you have to offer.
For those of you that want to contact me, I am very easy to contact. My calendar is right at the top of the website. You can message me on social media. I think my phone number is there too. Add me on Skype. I'd love to talk to you about your business, how I can help you. Definitely check out our ebook of the 10 common mistakes of outsourcing. I know we covered a lot of them today. And if you want a book on how I built 2 companies bootstrapping and the mentality behind it, check out my book, Free Up Your Business, 50 Secrets to Bootstrapping $1 Million Companies.
Cool. We also have a bonus on the Skubana side. So we just recently had a New York event with 150 sellers, and the only people that were speaking were also very large sellers. And I wanted to make sure the presentations were full of tactics and strategy, not just quick hacks, but like real things that are going to move the needle in your business. So we recorded all this video, and we're not really selling the video, we're selling results. And so we have a session on spying on your competition. We have a session on Amazon's A9 algorithm, like stuff that we've never talked about before. We have a session on ClickFunnels and how to actually build funnels and drive traffic from Facebook and what this power seller is doing to drive traffic from Facebook. Again, it's all pre-vetted and it's stuff that I really stand behind. So check it out. The promo code is special for $30 off the video. It's on Vimeo and you'll get access to all the content. Really, really special. The other thing I just want to mention, I think you're going to be there as well, is Prosper Show is coming up in, I believe it's March 14th. It's like the biggest Amazon seller conference out there. We have a promo code that we have, which is Rubin18, RUBIN 18 for $100 off. Tickets are going to sell out. They're already almost sold out. So check it out, Rubin18 or Rubin 2018. Either one should work for the promo code. And I guess should we open up to any questions?
Yeah, quick note, I will not be at the Prosper Show. We are sponsoring it. We have like coupons and stuff that are going out, but I will be in the Philippines, unfortunately.
Oh, man. All right.
Next year.
So Lenny wrote, I should have waited before signing up. Julie. So Julie did sign up. You should have waited. Julie. I think that, Nate, can you flag Julie's account?
Yes, I don't know Julie's last name, but Julie, if you reach out to me after this, I'm more than happy to apply it to your account. Just reach out to me.
Awesome. Lenny said a recap of the rules. I missed a few. Really, there's no rules of engagement. We were just outlining like some mistakes, some things that we learned from the grind and from the hustle, from the school of hard knocks. Is there any rules that you want to outline, Nate, before we depart?
Yeah, like you said, no rules, best practices that you can take and apply to your business however you seem fit. Instead of a recap, someone else posted the replay. Chad, you're going to have a replay that you can send out, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You're sending out the slides too.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
One of the things that we didn't mention was we were going to go through like email flow, how I automate email flow. If you want to email me, if like email is like a serious bottleneck for you, I have nailed the strategy on email automation. It's one of the things that we're consuming most of my time. And so we can talk about it offline because like we are up, and I really appreciate everyone joining us at this event. I think I want to give you a shout out, Nate, for joining and helping us put together the slides and providing a great service for sellers to automate and run their business.
Yeah, thank you so much. One question I saw was about keeping track of time. We do have a software that the workers will start time, end time, leave notes when they work. If you want to go crazy, you can always buy Hubstaff or Time Doctor and have the workers use those. They're more than happy to, and then they'll just send an adjustment to our software. But we do have software in place to protect you.
Looks like Mark just wrote he missed the promo. Let's sign up. If you did sign up right, which you did, just shoot Nate an email again, letting him know. He'll take care of it. For those that are still listening right now, just think about the number one thing you want to get off your plate. The number one thing that will free up, no pun intended, your time, right? That's what you need to be outsourcing right away. And sometimes it's not a new activity. Sometimes it's actually an activity that's already on your plate. In other words, subtraction is more important than addition for entrepreneurs. Let's work on getting things off your plate first, and then we can talk about new opportunities out there that you want to outsource.
Awesome. Well, Chad, thank you so much. This was great. Anyone that wants to reach out to me that has additional questions, feel free. I know Chad's available as well. And we'll see you in a few days, Chad.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.